For those that don't know, I'm Jess from Maritime UK. I'm Programme Executive for Careers and Outreach. So I look after everything maritime careers across the whole of the UK and making sure that the public and especially young people are aware of the opportunities available to them. So I'm sure you all know that this week is National Apprenticeship Week. So I thought it's a fantastic opportunity to speak about the maritime apprenticeships available. And make sure you have all of the up-to-date information. So speaking to you today, we have David Tournay from the Maritime Skills Alliance, we have Darrell Bate from Marine Society and Sea Cadets, and we have Scarlett from a former Port of London Authority apprentice and now a Deck Cadet with Trinity House. Cool. So we will hear from David first with an overview of the maritime apprenticeships available, and I will share his slides for him.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, it's safer that way. Okay, you do it rather than me, so I'll probably mess it up anyway. Anyway, nice to see you all today, and it's really encouraging to hear that you're interested in the marine sector, or certainly learning about it on behalf of the young people that you're actually working with, which is obviously very exciting. So that's great. First of all, so sorry, if you could just go on to the first slide, Jess, the other one, the next one. That's it, lovely. I think it's worth just highlighting who the Maritime Skills Alliance are, first of all, just so you can understand where I'm sort of coming from in terms of my presentation. Essentially, the Maritime Skills Alliance is an organisation which brings together, or has brought together, approximately about 18 different organisations who work across the marine sector.
She said generally Tuesdays and Wednesdays before 1 o'clock is fine. So right. On that basis.
Okay, so yeah, represents about 18 organisations across the maritime skills sector. Some of them are employers, some of them are agencies, some of them are training organisations. But what combines them together is a real commitment to making apprenticeships work in particular, but also making sure that as a whole we've got very much a robust skills development system. So some of the logos are up there. I couldn't fit them all on the slide. There's so many. So the Merchant Navy Training Board, obviously, who Jess later on you'll be very familiar with. Sorry, Scarlett will be. The Royal Navy, we're all familiar with that. The Lifeboats Association, we have the Maritime Coast Guard Association, Marine Society and Sea Cadets, and Darrell will be speaking a little bit later about them as well. The Workboat Association, and another one called MEBA, which you probably won't have heard of, but certainly they look after the super yacht sector. So it's very, very diverse, and we've taken an active part in actually helping to design and promote and support a good many of the apprenticeships that I'll be talking about today, and some of those pathways open to young people. So my job in that organisation is really to make sure that we're always up to speed. We're taking the opportunities and taking advantage of new developments in terms of qualification pathways to make sure they're very current, and to making sure that they are really genuinely helping young people and older people, of course, progress within the sector. And I think it's nice, really, that also it shows the commitment they've all got. So yeah, if you can move on to the next slide, thanks, Jess. So here's a very simple slide, really. I think it's worth just to help get your head around the scope of the sector. Broadly, it's sort of split into two simplistic areas. So we have what we call the wet side, which is really people using vessels, so using ships, using boats. So that's crew and staff working aboard vessels, and those involved directly with day-to-day vessel operations. So this could be like cruise ships, navy, cargo ships, workboats, fishing vessels, port operators, and shipping agents. So it's incredibly diverse, and this is really the side that the Maritime Skills Alliance primarily looks after. But also when we talk about marine, we can't ignore the fact that there's also what we perhaps refer to more as the dry side. And that's really those involved with more the boat building, ship building, and those engineering type functions. And that's more the, I suppose, if you like, it's perhaps better to call it the supply side in many, many ways. Now, we don't deal with those. The apprenticeships I'm talking about today don't cover those sides. That's very much a different sort of part of the sector. But we do work very closely together to a certain degree, certainly in terms of look at where the maritime industry is going within the UK, because of course, you know, if we want to see a very good example of that is in the growth of offshore wind turbines being put up. We only have to go to your seaside to see those popping up around us. But those wind turbines require constant maintenance of people, and therefore people taking the crews out to maintain them on a daily basis. So therefore we have to keep an eye on what's coming down the pipeline, what's new, and what's changed the industry as we go along. And in the middle read, I've highlighted some other organisations that we work together with, say, to make sure that our apprenticeships are fit for purpose and really do make sure that we're looking to the future all the time in what we do. So obviously there's the Maritime Skills Alliance, which I represent, Maritime UK, very much flying the flag with Jess here today, who very much are driving forward many initiatives, not just in terms of apprenticeships and learning, but all other aspects of the marine industry and being a voice to government. We also have a body which I sit on, which is called the Maritime Skills Commission, which is very much influencing the Department for Transport in terms of what's the skills issues that we have within our industry, what do we need to do, and what does government need to do to make sure that works. And likewise, a similar organisation is the UK Shipbuilding Task Force, which again is looking at the skills element to say, well, if we want to build big ships in the future, things like aircraft carriers or research vessels, what skills do we actually need to develop for the future? And that's really critical. So if we just move on to the next slide for me, Jess, thank you. Sort of my flower petal model. So I thought it's also worth highlighting that when we're talking about marine orientated apprenticeships or maritime orientated apprenticeships, we're not explicitly just talking about people who are driving ships, essentially. There's a lot of things around it that also overlap and also can actually help people extend their career either into the industry from other sectors they might have learnt from, or perhaps going the other way as well. And I suppose a really good example of that one we can all imagine is very much in terms of hospitality and tourism, in terms of the cruise line sector. In fact, the cruise line sector employs more hospitality staff than it does shipping staff or engineers. That's the biggest volume of staff aboard in that sort of side of things. So it's very, very important. So people perhaps who have already learnt to be chefs or worked in hotels or in those environments can go on to have their career develop, perhaps within a cruise line sector, or even more exotic, perhaps in the super yacht sector as well, which again is recruiting people with those backgrounds. Engineering goes without saying in terms of not just engineering in terms of building ships, but certainly engineering and maintaining the ship and the vessel whilst it's at sea. Again, a real critical area, and again where there's people come from engineering functions coming into the marine sector, but also marine engineers who might want to go into other roles, perhaps when they want to progress their careers in some way or other. Construction, say in terms of, as I say, certainly in terms of energy production, that's a big area. Food production in terms of fishing, so perhaps we might move from the catching sector back into the processing side as well. And of course, the other ones I'm going to highlight here are certainly logistics in rail and road. So our transportation of materials around the world, we work very, very closely with the port sector to make sure that those ships can moor up, they can actually have their loads removed very easily, and it can be done safely, and it's very efficient and effective. We only have to look back at what happened with the ship getting stuck in the Nile about a year or so ago, and the impact that had instantly on the supply of many goods. And that's just from one ship getting stuck. So therefore, it's a very slick operation, to say the least, to make sure that those ships are coordinated and managed very effectively. So we're a sector really that is very diverse, works with lots of other sectors as well, so very much an important glue, and also has roles in it that can go from very much entry level all the way up to very senior levels, postgraduate, etc. So we just move you on again, Jess. So here we go. So here's lots of pictures. You can see I basically raided Google, and I thought there's nothing better than a picture to show the diversity of our sector. So certainly top left to me, obviously a cruise line. Again, many roles aboard there. The one in the middle there, the super yacht, I think that's Jess's new boat, isn't it? I don't know, maybe. I should put that down payment on that one. So super yachts, again, require engineers, crews to operate them. They need hospitality staff on board as well. Likewise, got that's top right. That's Tenacious, owned by the Sea Cadets. So again, sailing staff on board, working with young people aboard that in a sail training capacity. Underneath there, we got one of the clipper boats, which goes up and down the Thames. Again, so not out at sea for weeks on end, but perhaps on a daily basis for people who don't necessarily want to be away from home so much. So again, offering very much a public transport type function. On the right there, that sort of funny oil rig looking thing, that's got a jack-up barge, and we're working with jack-up barge masters at the moment to design an apprenticeship for people working more on the construction and engineering side. And they're very important in terms of constructing wind turbines and sort of infrastructure on the Thames, which you quite often see, or harbour fronts or port areas. So again, a very important part that we work with. So when the barge is actually fixed to the ground, it's looked after. It's seen as a structure, but when it's actually floating, it's seen as a ship. So it's quite a confusing one, that one. Obviously, we've got fishing boats, big cargo tankers, big container ships, the Royal Navy themselves, the RNLI. I could have gone on and on and on. So again, it shows the variety. The marine industry isn't just about big ships moving oil around the world. It's far more than that. So we can move on to the next slide, Jess. There we go. So what I popped up here really is a list of the marine focused apprenticeships that we currently have available to our sector at the moment. And these, as I say, have been developed over a period of time and actually cover pretty well most, I'd say probably about 80% of our sector is covered, probably a bit more actually, in terms of the nature of the different apprenticeships that fit in. So obviously port operative would be an individual working in a port situation, perhaps, I know, Felixstowe Docks or someone like Tilbury or someone along those lines, managing port operations. And they might be actually helping and maintaining and guiding the removal of containers and container ships and reloading them again. So a very responsible job. We've got seafarers actually working on ships at a junior level. But of course, they can then move on to the level 3 there, the officer of the watch. They're gaining more experience. They're developing their skills in various different roles at a supervisory level. And perhaps they might move from officer of the watch to be on to be a ship's master later on. In fact, we're developing a Master 500, as we call it at the moment, apprenticeship, to make sure we've got that progression pathway. So you can go in at a relatively junior level and progress all the way up to being the master of a ship in some form or other. You could be a workboat crew member, so perhaps working on something much smaller. It could be a boat that is supporting wind turbine maintenance, or likewise, workboat crew members could be perhaps working on a fish farm, actually supporting fish farms. And we're seeing this up in Scotland at the moment. What other girls are there? Marine pilots. So these are experienced seamen who are actually going out on larger ships to guide them into ports. So you have marine pilots perhaps at the Humber or maybe at the Thames who go out and meet large ships and guide them in. So again, they're going to have to be highly skilled and really know the actual local waters. We have harbour masters who are again land-based, but they're controlling what's going on, what's coming into the port, what's going out of the port. It's a bit like being an air traffic controller in many, many ways. So to make sure there's no collision and everything's done safely. So we've got a whole variety of different apprenticeships that we're actually using. And certainly we've got some really, really good providers who are very much specialists. We're very much a specialist sector in that regard, who are working with now a diverse range of employers to really support and set up some very effective training programs and apprenticeship programs. A good example of that is I mentioned the clipper vessels actually on the Thames at the moment. So again, you know, there's they've very much committed to having an effective using that. There's a boatmaster apprenticeship, making sure we're using that to make sure that there's real progression for young people entering that sector around the area. Likewise, the workboat crew member is again widely used. And again, many employers want to use those apprenticeships to make sure we've got a good supply of young people coming into the sector moving forward. I think the other thing that's worth highlighting within marine focused apprenticeships also is that I think, say, I mean, I've worked across many sectors over the years, and marine is more recent to me. But certainly with it, I think what is noticeable is the inclusion and the link to professional qualifications that are used as well within the sector. As you can imagine, being at sea on operating this sort of machinery or vessels can be very dangerous potentially. So therefore, there's an awful lot of requirement for statutory qualifications to be covered by individuals in regards to safety, but also their knowledge in terms of safe operation of vessels, navigation, etc. So therefore, these are very much built into many of these apprenticeships. And therefore, we work very closely with the relevant regulatory bodies, in particular the Maritime Coast Guard Agency, to make sure that these apprenticeships incorporate them. And they're very, very good, actually. We work very closely with them as well to make sure that there is a synergy there. And of course, that means that the apprenticeship actually itself has added value. So it's not just an apprenticeship, it's an apprenticeship that also incorporates lots of other qualifications and tickets as well to really build a good basis for their career. So you've got to go on to my last slide, Jess. So finally, what I wanted to say here, this is the Maritime Skills Alliance. We have I suppose what I call quite a technical website in terms of we actually list on there all the relevant details of current apprenticeships and what's going on at the moment. So therefore, please you can use that as a resource. Obviously, you'll probably be familiar already with the Institute for Apprenticeships website, but if you want to look at something very marine specific or maritime specific, feel free to use that website. You might find it useful. And I've got my details there as well. In my role as secretary, you're always very, very welcome to call me, pick my brains or whatever. I'm here as a resource, so please use me if you want to sort of be steered in a certain direction or want to find out more. I'm sure I can. If I don't know myself, I know a person who can probably. So please use me for that, and I'll happily do so. But yeah, it's really exciting to talk to you. It's nice to meet you, and I hope to get a chance to talk to some of you soon and perhaps answer any questions you might have. But I'll pass back to Jess now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. I try and use the technology and close that one. Darrell, I know you had some technical issues earlier. I wondered if they're all sorted and you'd be happy to share. Oh, I think we've lost your sound potentially, Darrell. We still can't hear you, I'm afraid. Technology is such a wonderful thing. Did you want to try leaving and coming back? Whilst Darrell tries to sort out his computer, I guess I'll fill some time. So coming up for Maritime UK, obviously next month, a month today, will be Maritime Careers Day. So we've partnered with National Careers Week, and Wednesday, the 8th of March, will be a Maritime Focused Careers Day. So there's almost 300 maritime ambassadors across the UK, ready and raring to visit schools and colleges across the country. And we also have lots of different events that are listed on our website, including our first Maritime Roadshow for Girls. Oh, we can hear you now, Darrell. Hello.
I don't know what I did there, but something seems to work. It's as you said, we were having problems earlier, so sorry, everyone.
I'm going to do it by mime. I thought you were going to mime your.
David, I think you could do this better than me anyway. So I'll just put the pictures up and you can do the talking. Okay, I am now going to share the PowerPoint, and let's hope this continues to work. Ooh, no, that's the wrong share. Hopefully that's coming through on a screen near you. Yeah.
I think you might have just closed it.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay. Well, I've got the red line around, which is, let's try again. How about that? Anything?
Yes, there we go.
Yes?
Yeah.
I'm sweating away here. Okay, fantastic. Excellent. Well, I'm also glad to be with you. I've probably eaten into my time, but so I'll whip through these. But obviously, David has painted a really good overview for you of the maritime sector. I'm just here to talk to you from the provider, the training provider's perspective, and what we do in the sector and what it looks like for us for apprenticeships. So Marine Society and Sea Cadets. So a little bit about us, just so you got some context. So we are a national charity. We have around 180 employees, 8,000 volunteers, 14,000 Sea Cadets. Probably there's a unit near wherever you are. There's probably a Sea Cadet unit. They're not just on the coast; they're inland, all over the country, and Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. So many locations, training locations we have, and so on. But I'm speaking to you from Lambeth, where our head office is, as I speak now. But going back, we have to go way back to 1756, when the Marine Society, as it was then, was founded. It is actually still Britain's oldest maritime charity. And our purpose, it was just before I joined, actually. But back then, it was the purpose was to supply and train young boys for the Royal Navy. Believe it or not, there was no training. They used to just grab them off the street and put them on to a ship for a year or so. And so I think we've moved on a little bit. Hopefully, think that the modern Royal Navy. But that was our sort of original background. So a very long, illustrious history. And then fast forward many decades, 2004. Merged with the Sea Cadet Association, as that was, to become MSSC, and so overall providing youth uniforms, youth development, and lifelong learning to seafarers. Because we're a training provider and an education provider, we get regulated through Ofsted, the education watchdog, and our last inspection was back in 2017. I'll just keep very quiet now because I've got a feeling they're coming soon, because it's been 5 or more years. So, but we are still rated as a graded 2 good provider there. But in 2020, just about 6 months after I joined, we applied and joined the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, which I'm sure you on this call will know is the requirement, the DFE requirement, to be able to deliver apprenticeships. So that is a procurement you have to go through and become listed on the register. So that all happened, and off we went. We launched into apprenticeships. Just to say on the funding, we are funded by the MOD, Ministry of Defence, to about 50% of our funding. So we have ESFA funding for just normal adult skills funding, the levy fund for apprenticeships, course fees, and charitable donations. So hopefully that gives you a flavour. We're not our paymasters are spread across the board there. So hopefully, if one doesn't generate the income, we've got other sources. So we've got quite we are a diverse organisation in that sense, and like any good organisation, we have a vision. In fact, we've got 2 visions, because the Sea Cadets are being very specifically in terms of the work that they do with volunteers. Their vision is very simple. It's to that every young person is launched for life. So bit of a nautical expression there. So I know Jess is smiling. Jess actually was an ex-Sea Cadet. So you see, all the best people end up staying in maritime. And I was an ex-seafarer. So you can't get out of this sector once you're in it, I find. And then for us as Marine Society, our vision is there it is. It's every current and also future seafarer and maritime professional skilled for life. I think there's a debate about what is a seafarer, what is a maritime professional. We can sort of talk about that, but there's a sort of what we call the wet and the dry element. So the seagoing, the wet side, and then the dry side, where there's a lot of maritime roles, as David has referred to, some in professional services and shipbuilding, naval architecture, all of these things. So we see ourselves as offering skills and development for anyone who's working in those 2 sectors. And our offer, is that we offer to our beneficiaries is for sea cadets, certainly is residential camps and offshore voyages. So we have a fleet of offshore vessels, motor and sail. We have our flagship is the TS Royalist, which is, you may have seen it occasionally. It's a sort of like that one from the Aeneid line, although I'm not allowed to say that here. It's a three-masted brig, beautiful ship, and so we offer these incredible experiences for young people. For ourselves, more on the Marine Society, very much involved in the career promotion piece. Particularly, we offer things for the Royal Navy. Just like to say we're not a recruitment arm for the Royal Navy, but we certainly have close links, and we do ship visits and involved in very much of their their annual events and parading and all of those sorts of things. Merchant Navy, of course, we attend a lot of nautical college open days and so on, and then also shoreside roles. We will promote and get involved in that. Financial support we offer through bursaries. We offer also funded ESFA funded adult courses, so distance learning courses, and again primarily in sort of the maritime sector. And 6, coming on to these apprenticeship standards. So we've heard about a whole list of those from David. We offer currently up to 6 of those. We also have a suite of online courses that we kind of call Learn at Sea and Learn at Shore. I think hopefully the clue's in the title. So there are seagoing ones. So people like the speaker you're going to hear next, Scarlett, she's studying to be a deck officer, doing a deck cadetship. So the Learn at Sea courses are very much to support people, studying on that route through to their first certificate of competency. Whereas Learn at Shore is a set of courses that aimed at people who want to work in the maritime professional services. So those are things that we offer to all of our beneficiaries. And then lastly, there we have a mentoring program for seafarers, quite a sort of tailored service for seafarers who do come ashore. They don't necessarily make it a career at sea. Many are coming ashore, sooner in their professional lives. So and that making that transition from working, deep sea to a 9-to-5 job and commuting to work is quite a challenge. So we have a special program that supports that. So I mentioned the 6 standards. There they are, multicolored, and they are, well, they're sort of niche and specialist because there's very few providers in our sector. So I guess you as career leads know lots of training providers who offer lots of the sort of the broad brush apprenticeships, the business admins and the customer services, the retail, hospitality. In our world, there's really a very a handful, and mainly because a number of these that you see there are, as David mentioned earlier, they're licensed to practice. They have a lot of regulated qualifications and so on, and that requires a lot of resource and specialists. So they tend to be quite niche, and those are the 6 we currently offer. The figure there in the duration is the duration. So outdoor activity is a short 12-month, right through to the officer of the watch near coastal, which is just to do with the size of the vessel, up to potentially 36-month duration. Who are our beneficiaries? So we think that basically any young person aged 9 to 18, which is the Sea Cadet range, age range, they are our beneficiaries. We particularly have a good outreach to disadvantaged socioeconomic disadvantaged postcode areas. Just seems to be really attractive because we're very accessible. Fees are very, very low and minimal, and we offer this amazing experience to them. So very, very popular in those areas. As I mentioned earlier, any aspiring or serving seafarer of any age. So if you're serving at any age, then we are there for you. Someone once described us as actually you're the Matrix organization. We are a Matrix accredited, and the assessor said, our beneficiaries say that we are always there for them of whatever stage of their career, which is, I thought, was a really, really nice comment to make. And then seafarers who need financial support to train or study, schools and colleges probably like yourself on this call. So if you want to promote maritime, you need to work with someone like ourselves who are in that sector, in the skills and education area, who will help you to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, you're our beneficiary of what we offer. And then the employers, so the maritime employers who have recruitment or skills need. Again, we've heard a bit about, it is about filling the skills shortage, of which there is a lot in the maritime sector. Post Brexit, there's been certain skills that have been lost to the country, particularly the port sector. I know the workboat industry. There's a dearth of deckhands, of able seafarers. They're just not getting the people coming in at that level. So we are there for them in whatever sort of small way we can support. And then how do we engage with these sort of with the stakeholders that we're trying to reach with the programs that we offer? Well, we're kind of fortunate in that we've aligned ourselves and partnered with quite a few sector bodies, industry bodies that represent our sector, and those are the sort of the main ones that I've listed. We are currently members. Obviously, Maritime Skills Alliance, as David has just spoken, that's an absolutely critical partner. Maritime UK goes without saying, but also the port skills and safety, the British Marine, who are the sort of more of the leisure, the marine mariners and the side of things. So UK Chamber of Shipping represent all the shipping interests, the shoreside ship owners law, so on, all of those organizations, and then the Workboat Association, which are the small commercial vessel sector. So all of those give us access to their members, so we can engage and offer our apprenticeships to their member bodies. And then we are kind of pretty active at anything career fairs, open days, as I say, conferences, trade exhibitions, and webinars like this. So we try to get ourselves around. We're a pretty small team, try to punch above our weight, but there's a lot going on, and we do, that's why opportunities like this are great. And I thought, just before I sort of wind up, I just couldn't resist this slide, because sometimes people say, well, an apprenticeship, what is that? It's pretty straightforward and it's quite easy. But this slide kind of gives you a flavor of all the different elements to the learner journey, right from pre-enrollment all the way through to when they leave and go on to their next destination. So, and all of those steps in that program you see all are regulated and have to be evidenced and delivered and tracked and audited, to track, to maintain the funding. So it is a complex program. I just make that clear. They are not easy programs to deliver, and they have to be bespoke to the particular employer that you're working with, and even the young person. So they're not sort of off the shelf packages that you just run with. Highly complex programs. So I think they're great. I think what they offer for young people and their progression is fantastic. And here's just some nice pickies, because just to prove what I said, we actually do. So I picked a few there, various exhibitions, careers fairs that we've been at over the past year there. And then here's a few pictures of our apprentices in various stages of training, and there's probably someone you recognise on the top left there. So we some of our apprentices have met royalty, and they've won awards and so on. So very proud of all of them. So lastly, just to say, how can we help you in your careers roles? Well, you'll be pretty aware that last month the DFE published their latest guidance for all of us, and of course it now actually enshrines in law that you must have six meaningful engagements with training providers and employers. So if you're we can provide those in the maritime sector, to create one of those opportunities that meet your Gatsby benchmarks and so on. So use us for that. We're also, I'm personally a member, volunteer with Inspiring the Future. So go into schools and do their careers events as a kind of volunteer from industry. And then all of the sort of literature that we have for the various sectors, there's a couple of examples there that we bring with us and can share with you if you want to have them at your school or college or wherever you are based. So I'm hoping that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I'll end that now and come out of that. And thank goodness the sound and picture survives. Over to you, Jess.
I've been talking to myself.
Yeah, no worries.
It's easily done, isn't it? But yeah, thank you very much, Darrell. That was really great. I think I'm sure there'll be lots of questions for you, but we'll hear from Scarlett quickly, and then we'll leave some time at the end for any questions. So the presentation should be loading up now.
Thank you, Jess.
And over to Scarlett.
Hello everyone, I'm Scarlett Barnett-Smith. I'm currently a Deck Cadet sponsored by the Port of London Authority and Trinity House. I am the only Deck Cadet sponsored by the Port of London Authority, and this was because of my apprenticeship on the River Thames. I've had quite a unique route into a cadetship that I don't think there's many cadets out there that have had my route. And it's not to say every apprenticeship leads into apprentice going to sea, because I started my career on the River Thames and I slowly progressed to become a seafarer. But yeah, when I was at school, I always knew I wanted to work on boats. I didn't know what type of boats. I didn't know if they were big boats or ships or whereabouts I wanted to work, but I always had such a passion for the water. I always felt so calm and happy when I was anywhere near the water. I knew that was where I wanted to work. So I, at 16, turned around to my family and said, what can we do? I really want to work on boats. And all of my family are hairdressers. My mum, my dad, my sister, my auntie, my cousin, everyone in my life is a hairdresser. So it was a bit of a shock, I think, for everyone to hear that I wanted this career. It's a career on the water. So I started off, unfortunately, leaving school and not really knowing anything about the industry. And that's one of the reasons I do so much on social media and promoting the industry, because for me, if I would have knew about the industry earlier, I probably would have started my apprenticeship earlier. But I started off with RYA, so I was doing small courses such as day skipper and yacht masters, just trying to get as much experience as I could on sailing vessels. And then one day I was searching online and I found a company called the Waterman Enlightenment Company. If you go to the next slide. So the Waterman Enlightenment Company are a lighterage company on the River Thames, and they go back to 15th century. So there is generations of watermen and lightermen on the River Thames. It's very historic. So there is still people that work on the River Thames, that great granddad worked on the River Thames, and it's a family kind of tradition. But the hall is modernised, the Waterman Hall is modernised, and it's kind of accepted that in this day and age, obviously, everyone can't be related on the river. So I found this company and I was like, oh my God, this looks amazing. So I emailed and I got an interview at the hall, and I got bound to the hall a couple of months later, and that's when I started my apprenticeship. I was 17, bound to the Waterman Enlightenment Company. As part of your apprenticeship, obviously, you need to be employed by a company. So I searched everywhere and I applied for absolutely every company I could. And I actually got a job with Jetstream Tours at first, which I worked a couple of months on a passenger boat working out of the River Medway and on the Thames Estuary. But when I heard about the Port of London Authority apprenticeship, I was like, wow, this is a no-brainer. So as you can probably see in this photo, this is just some of the stuff that I've done with the Waterman Enlightenment Company, such as barge races on the River Thames. You can normally see me because my curly hair, but in the two photos on the right, that was when I was actually qualified with my boat masters, and I was given the responsibility of actually steering the barge up and down the river, which was very scary. But on the left, that's me kind of at the beginning of my cadetship. You can kind of see me rowing there at the back, with two very tired boys laying down behind me. But this is just some of the activities that you get to do as an apprentice on the River Thames, and I really try to highlight that because there is so much fun to be had, and I don't think it's seen very often. When I first got told that I was rowing a barge, I didn't nowhere expect that it would look like this. So yeah, it's pretty fun stuff. So if you go to the next slide, Jess. So yeah, I went for my interviews at the Port of London Authority, and there was many interviews. It was a very intense interview process, and I thought there is no way I'm going to get this, but I just showed my passion for the industry and just was very much myself. And that's where my kind of whirlwind career started. I've probably had the most well, I think my career so far has just been unbelievable, and I try to promote the industry as much as I can as being the most unbelievable industry in the world, because to me it is. So I started my apprenticeship at the Port of London Authority as a marine service apprentice. So you would have heard the other two speakers speak about a boatmaster's apprenticeship. That's what I done. So I trained towards my boatmasters through the Port of London Authority, and my training company was Sea Regs. So if you go to the next slide. Yes. So these are some of the vessels I worked on for the Port of London Authority. If you get an apprenticeship for another company such as Thames Clippers, or I believe they're called Uber Boats now, you're predominantly majority of your time as an apprentice when you do your work-based learning, when you're actually on the vessels, getting your tasks signed off in your task training book, you will spend that time on the Thames Clippers. But for me as an apprentice at the Port of London Authority, I got to experience a large variety of vessels that the Port of London Authority own. So these are some of them, if you go to the next slide. So as you can see, it's a wide variety of craft, such as pilot cutters, multi-service vessels. The ones I enjoyed the most were the hydrographic survey vessels. So this is the Maplin and the Tame, the top left corner, and then one below that. So that's literally surveying the riverbed, and on the estuary is unbelievable because there's so much aircraft, there's so much wrecks, and we'd literally go back and forth, me on the helm driving over it, and we could literally see the imagery. It's amazing. But yeah, so the Thames, as it says here, the Port of the London Authority covers 95 miles of the River Thames, and I worked on every single mile there could be. So I worked from Teddington all the way out to the Thames estuary, the North Sea, throughout my cadetship. So I'd spend a certain amount of months on one vessel and a certain amount of months on another. It was just unbelievable. But yes, there were some of the boats I worked on. Go to the next slide. So this is just something I found online. I'm sure things have changed, and I actually think the salary has gone up for the Port of London Authority now for apprenticeships. But I basically done, it took me actually 2 and a bit years, a boatmaster's apprenticeship. Requirement for that was GCSEs, A to C or 9 to 3. For me, I done the old learning, so majority of mine was still marked, still graded an A to C, but I know now it's changed to numbers 9 to 3. I don't really understand them, but yeah, I was actually 17 when I started, but it was a couple of weeks until I turned 18. A driving license is kind of required because you are driving quite a lot. If you're not driving to Gravesend, like I used to work up in Richmond, so I'd drive to Richmond and back quite a lot. But you can obviously use the train as well, but they prefer if you do have a driving licence. And I was based at Gravesend, which is in Kent. But this isn't the only apprenticeship in the world. You don't have to work on the River Thames. There's a lot of rivers around the United Kingdom. We are a island nation. So yeah, obviously I'm very pro Port of London Authority, but there's loads of other companies out there. If you go to the next page, please. So Sea Regs were my training provider. So I would go up to Plymouth and we would stay, me and the other apprentices, and we would do various courses, as you can see here. So I gained every single one of them courses that you see through my apprenticeship. This has benefited my career massively as I progressed after my apprenticeship. Having these tickets and licenses, I will have these for the rest of my life, and it's a pretty, you gain a lot, I think, for a 2 and a bit year apprenticeship. To say that you have all of them courses, it's pretty cool. And Sea Regs were unbelievable. They're amazing. They do a lot of training, not just on the Thames, but other port authorities around the UK. They were my training provider, and they taught me kind of what I know now, and that's helped me throughout my cadetship massively. Go on to the next slide, please. So for me, the practical element of my job has always been the most fun. Crane driving, I got my key crane license, my forklift license, my knuckle boom crane license, all with the Port of London Authority. So I'd literally be on the workboat boats, driving the cranes, be in the yard at Denton Wharf, out on deck with the lads. Honestly, it was just unbelievable. And we even got sailing experiences. We got to go on a lot of barges. So I got to go on the Blue Mermaid, which is a beautiful Thames barge, done the Thames barge race. And yeah, for me, it's always been the best part of my job. And I think that's what's so special about apprenticeships is you don't just have to go and study in a college. You can actually go out and you learn the practical element. Is such a large part of your license. And when you qualify, you're going to be the one that is going to be the captain of that vessel, and to have that practical experience is extremely detrimental to your career. So yeah, for me the practical element was probably the best. So I actually was a cadet when I won this award, but it was for my apprenticeship. So the Workboat Association awarded me in 2021 the John Percival Memorial Award for the best industry trainee of 2021. This is just an example of, if you work hard and if you're determined, what you can gain out of your apprenticeship. So I'll have this award for the rest of my life. It's actually a beautiful barometer that I've got on my shelf in my house, which my parents are very proud of. But it's just an example, and you can see in the corner there Vicky and Simon that were my kind of teachers and are the owners of Sea Regs Training. And on my right, Rachel DeBont, who used to be the old training liaison officer, who has kind of been my rock and my mentor throughout my whole career and still is now. She's an ex-seafarer, and then she come ashore to work for the Port London Authority. But yeah, this is just an example. I didn't know anything about this award, but the Port London Authority put me up for this award, and this is what you can gain as an apprentice doing a boatmaster's licence. So I don't want to talk too much about my cadetship, because I completely understand this was just about, and I'm happy to answer any questions about my apprenticeship on the River Thames and the things that I done later when we do questions. But I just want to I want to really emphasise what you can gain out of an apprenticeship. You don't have to, okay, for the rest of your life, work on the Thames, work on Thames clippers for quarries, or work on inland waterways and pilot cutters for the rest of your life, because that's basically what you have. You have a licence to drive a pilot cutter. You have a licence to drive a small commercial vessel. It's actually unlimited, but 5 miles to sea, 50 miles from your departure point when you gain your boatmasters. So you have this licence, obviously, but it's the career progression after that. There's so many opportunities, and I was given an amazing opportunity to start a cadetship. So I started from scratch, well, not from scratch, but I changed my career once again, but still in the industry, and I'm now the end of my cadetship, which is a 3-year cadetship, and I'm training towards my Officer Watch Unlimited licence, sponsored by the Port of London Authority and Trinity House. So I just wanted to show some of the vessels I've been on as a cadet, because I showed some of the vessels I've been on as a apprentice. So you may notice the red one in the middle, Boat Boatface, no, Sir David Attenborough, I'm not allowed to say that. But yeah, I've just literally 2 weeks ago flown home from Antarctica. Well, actually, I flew home from Chile, but I was in Antarctica on Royal Research Ship Sir David Attenborough. I've sailed to Hawaii on a Royal Navy ship. You can probably see in the bottom right hand corner. I don't know for a fact, but I think I was the first ever merchant cadet to deploy on a Royal Navy ship. I've also sailed on both Galatea and the Patricia, the Trinity House vessels, and the big cruise ship in the middle, Azura, which is a P&O cruise ship. So this is kind of, obviously, as you can see, I'm now on much larger vessels, and I'm proceeding to places a bit further stretched than the River Thames. But my apprenticeship is kind of where my roots began, and I will always have such a love for the river and such a love for the community. And I'm still bound to the Water and Enlightenment Company, so I still do a lot of training, and I go to a lot of events on the River Thames, and I'm hoping to potentially row Dog Gets Coat and Badge race one day. Like, the opportunities are always still there, and you can always come back to the river. This is another thing. One day I may come back, I'm sure I will, but yeah, that's kind of a bit about me. You're on mute, Jess, I think.
Cool. Thank you very much, Scarlett. No, that was really great. And yeah, thank you very much, Darrell and David as well. It was great to hear from you both. Did anyone have any questions? I've seen some comments in the chat, and I think David will follow up as well afterwards. But yeah, did anyone have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
So yeah, thank you very much. So that was really interesting, and I learned a lot about the support you can give to schools. So if I'm interested in booking something, do I go through you, Jess, or are there sort of regional branches that we can get hold of?
Yeah, so you'd go through the Inspiring the Future program. So I can put something in the chat with some further information, but if your school isn't already signed up, then you sign up for the platform and you can post your careers event onto the platform, and then our ambassadors can see that event and join in.
Okay, so it's through Inspiring the Future, really, which we are signed up for, but
yeah, but yeah, if there's any specific opportunities as well, you can definitely send them across to me too, and we can signpost ambassadors there as well. But yeah, we've got almost 300 ambassadors now, so I'm sure there will be someone in your area that will be able to come and visit you. But yeah, you can, I think through the platform as well, you can specifically request maritime ambassadors in your area. There should be an option to do that. So yeah, it'd be great to get an ambassador into your school.
great. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Oh, I think the link's been very helpfully put into the chat for me. So did you have any further questions, Katie?
No, that's good, thanks.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's all of the questions. So we'll end it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.